What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the first episode of Pod Scum in quite a long time. But your bastard of ceremonies is making his triumphant return. That's right, Rex Ruger. You're looking at him, the son of glam, the front man for the band. Just smoked a few grams. Got a million fans. I'm your ice cream man, Mr. Wop Bopaloo Boppa Wop Bam Bam Shazam. Hot damn. That's right. You're looking at the son of glam, Diamond David Lee Roth Jr., and the hard science will prove that very soon. Still in court, still dragging it through the mud, but Diamond Dave, you've got a son, and he's alive and well here in upstate New York. So get at me. This is, of course, the place where all the cool cats come to hang out and chop it up right here on Pod Scum. And it's been a minute, folks. It's been a minute. But we got a great guest in our triumphant return. We've been doing a lot of off-the-couch boxing, and we haven't changed the backdrop. But I figured the way I would thread this together is kick-ass interviews with boxers, kick-ass music. It's all punching you in the face. So no need for a set change, folks. Let it stay as is. And our guest is here. I'm super excited. It's been a while, folks. It's been a while. And a great guest. There he is. What's up, Sonny? How are you?
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, and I want to let you know that it's been a long time since I do two different podcasts, and one I do with my son where we interview strictly boxers and people from the fight game. That's why, of course, I have this backdrop right here of a boxing ring. But I thought, you know what? There's no way in hell that I'm going to change backdrops between every episode. You know, here's my thread, and hear me out, Sonny. You know, boxing is about kicking ass, and the musicians I have on here kick a lot of ass.
Fucking A, dude. Fucking
right?
keep it.
And I don't know if you know this or not, man, but I am currently in litigation to prove once and for all that I am Diamond David Lee Roth Jr.
All right.
So there is that, okay? So you may have really helped yourself in advancing your career because, you know, you're talking to an offspring of a rock legend right here.
All right. Yeah. Maybe even a little bit of Jim Dandy, I see.
Maybe. Maybe. So listen, man, first of all, congratulations. The new NECROT album is just a fucking crusher, man. It really is.
Oh, appreciate it.
Amazing. Amazing. And so let's chop it up here. Let me backtrack a little bit, man. How did you get into music? And specifically, how do you get into extreme music, which is obviously an acquired taste? I can't get my wife to listen to any.
I think back when I was in, well, I think heavy metal was probably one of my first favorite musics when I was a really young kid. I really liked, you know, Def Leppard and Iron Maiden and Priest. I was probably in the third grade in 1983, kind of dating myself here, but I can still remember the first time I heard Run to the Hills in the grocery store, you know, with my mom.
Yeah, that galloping. You know? Yeah.
You know, so like that was an early premonition of the future for me. Of course, being so young, as soon as rap hit, you know, in like 84, 85, I was hooked on that for a few years. And then it was like kind of not cool in my school to be all into breakdancing and rap for a little while. So I got into skateboarding and smoking weed and punk rock and new wave and stuff like that. And I didn't loop back around into playing heavy stuff again until later. I'd already been playing guitar for a while, and somebody handed me a few cassette tapes that kind of set the tone for me to get back into playing, or to get into playing stuff like that. And that was the Bad Brains Roar cassette. I believe it was a yellow cassette.
Yeah.
Of their early shit. And
it
was just like fucking badass, fast punk.
Yeah.
So that was like a huge one for me. I had Slayer, Live Evil, or Live Undead, is it? Anyway, I had that. I had some early Black Flag tape. I had DRI, Dealing with It, and Crossover. You know, a handful of cool ass punk tapes. Maybe a TSOL and some Drunk Engines. But like really it was like local bands where I'm from in New Mexico, and shows, cool punk shows rolling through town when I was in high school that kind of was like, whoa, this is sick. I was kind of like what is getting me pumped, bands like Logical Nonsense and Grimple. I remember the first time I saw a band do a grind beat was Hell Nation from I believe they were from Kentucky, and they
Yeah.
were on tour with Born Against, and I went and saw that show, and that was a big game changer. Uh, yeah, from there, I started getting in bands. I had kind of some more like hippie type bands before, early on, and then started getting into more like punk and heavier bands later.
And then when you start playing guitar, like, do you have that one guy who's playing, like, you kind of put up on a pedestal? When we're young, we have those athletes that we like to emulate. We have those guys in bands that we like to emulate. Who is that guitar hero for you?
Well, I mean, the obvious ones were definitely like Hendrix, Jimmy Page. David Gilmour is a huge influence on me. Even with all the death metal and heavier stuff that I do now, I still look at what he does as, creating something memorable in the music, that it's like
Yeah.
you can't imagine some of those songs without his solo, you know what I mean? So
I can't imagine being a guitar player. I feel like you'd have to get your guitar player card pulled. And there's no way to not mention Hendrix, right? As a guitar player, you can't. I've talked to so many musicians on here, and it's almost sacrilegious. You couldn't not mention Hendrix.
I agree, man. It's just like he's like the gateway drug.
Special, yeah, very special. And
But
and uh and what about favorite bands? We're talking about influences. What about favorite bands currently? And this might even be non-metal stuff. You got some time. You're on the tour bus. You're at home or whatever. What's Sonny Reinhardt throwing in for his leisurely listening?
oh man, it's a huge thing. Let's see. Uh
I'm sure
I
there's
listen
something in there that people might be surprised. Hearing the music of Necrot, there's probably something in there that people would be surprised that you would listen to.
All right, well, like for instance, I really like that's not metal. I really like a lot of like Turkish classical and psych rock music. Like I'm
Okay.
also a sound engineer by trade, and I worked a show for this band called Alten Gun from
Okay.
they're from the Netherlands. They were really great. I kind of got turned on to them a little bit by Jeff Matz from High on Fire.
Love them.
He's into a lot of that kind of stuff, and we used to
Yes,
be
as a matter of fact, I watched their
yeah,
episode when they were at Amoeba Records doing the "What's in My Bag" thing, and Jeff did have a Turkish, I think a Turkish folk music album or something
yeah,
of Turkish origin.
yeah. We used to be neighbors, and we lived with this guy who was in a band called Secret Chiefs 3,
Hmm.
which is Trace Bruins from Mr. Bungle spin-off band, and he's
Yeah.
deep into that stuff. So he kind of made this hybrid of Turkish classical and metal and experimental jazz. I like a lot of like southern rock and like heavy, weird, rare 70s stuff. Like I love bands like Mountain and fucking Volcano, Bang, old Grand Funk Railroad, MC5, a lot of old rock and roll. I listen to a ton of old blues, Howlin' Wolf, Muddy, Sonny
Mm.
Boy Williamson, Magic Sam. Like my dad was a country and blues bass player all growing up. So I grew up with a lot of Chicago blues influence.
Yeah.
Um, I love some jazz. I love like, early Miles Davis and Coltrane. Um,
Do you think
yeah,
it's
I get,
difficult?
you
Do
know,
you think it's difficult to play extreme music and also like avidly listen to it? Like, I'm sure you listen to some, but like I just watched like a recent interview with and it was with the lead singer of Deicide, Glenn Benton, who said that most of the time when he isn't playing playing on stage, he very rarely listens to extreme metal.
I think it just for me, it kind of just depends on my mood. I mean, I still love listening to fucking early Cannibal Corpse and Morbid
Yeah.
Angel, and I love pretty much all the eras of Obituary. I still like, when I'm getting ready to do solo time for Necrot or my other band Borlust, I might listen to a lot of Death.
Yeah.
I got a lot of inspiration from that Symbolic album one time. I like bands like Disincarnate. I listen to a lot of punk still. It just sort of depends on my mood, man.
Yeah.
I might get as much from a fucking Death song for a solo as I might from like an old Skinner song.
And shout out that you brought up Disincarnate too, because I had James Murphy on here, and more people were happy to see. It's still my highest viewed episode, and more people were happy that I asked if there was going to be another Disincarnate record. Which now I'd have to look back at the episode because I don't remember what the hell he even said. It was so long ago, but people love that album though, and he only did one, as far as I remember.
It's killer. Yeah, that's a classic and kind of slept on record, I think.
Yeah. And now when you and the guys from Necrot get together, what's the creative process like? Is it kind of very democratic? Does somebody come in with a lion's share of the ideas? How does that work? You guys are a three-piece.
Yeah, Luca, the bass player, is kind of he's the main writer.
Mm-hmm.
So he kind of writes all the songs for Necrot for the most part. And then I come in with the more melodic stuff and the solos, and I might make a few changes here and there for the guitar parts and whatnot. And obviously Chad does all the drum beats. Luca kind of has a framework, the structure of the song and the framework of the riffs, and then we kind of come together and sort of learn that, and then sort of tweak it a little bit, and then sort of find our own way with it. But he's kind of like the ringleader of the band, creatively speaking. But the solos and stuff, I write all the melodic solo stuff. That's all me, and it's still like my guitar sound or whatever. But yeah, I mean, we all live in different cities now, so we might send us some tracks or ideas or a full song, when it's time. And then
which is not the pain is not the pain in the ass that it used to be, right? Though it used to be a big pain in the ass being in different cities, right?
Kinda, yeah. I mean, our way is still pretty archaic. He'll just send videos of him playing the riffs. Really, we haven't got leveled up to using stuff like Guitar Pro or some of these kind of more DAW style workflows. I do some recording and stuff, so I know how to use a lot of that stuff, but
yeah,
we haven't bridged the gap as far as using it creatively with Necrot. We're pretty simple.
Yeah. You feel like that helps, man? Do you think like for keeping that old school like aesthetic? Do you think that helps? Do you like leaning on the technology a lot? Obviously, it's become a big part of music in general.
I would like to see us be able to embrace it a little more, because I think in the long run, for certain things, it makes it easier, as far as like a pre-production standpoint, like for instance, Chad really wanted to program drums, and then I was going to demo out a bunch of stuff. But all that stuff has to be laid out to a click or a tempo map.
Right.
And that just never happened this round, so we weren't able to really do it. But stuff like that, I think, can make it potentially easier, and also for tracking, like to have everything on the grid like that, tempo wise, is can be really helpful for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But that being said, we've not ever done that, and what you're hearing on the albums is straight up like our natural tempo that we play without a click or anything like that.
What's your opinion when bands do that? Like, obviously, we saw over the past year, we saw a lot of quote unquote legendary bands like Kiss, or you see these bands really catching a lot of backlash for using backing tracks or these different cheats. I'm not a musician like myself, but obviously people accuse smoke and mirrors type stuff, which I defy anybody to be able to replicate what they could do 30 or 40 years ago. So but again, me not being a musician, I don't know. Is that cheating? Is that something that you can get behind, or should it always be the live, genuine article? Mistakes and all.
Man, I went and saw Wasp play on this last tour that they did, and I could tell that he was leaning heavy on some backing tracks with the vocals, but I there was a huge backlash against Blackie for doing that, and I've seen Kiss do it too.
Right.
But I think it just sort of depends on the context. Like, obviously, I would love to see them be able to play it flawlessly, without all that shit,
Sure. Yeah.
But when you go back and you listen to some of that stuff, especially on the Wasp records, I'm a huge Wasps fan. I mean, he's got like a million fucking vocal tracks going, you know what I mean? And it's like, there's only one Blackie, so it's like, how are these guys gonna be able to sing all those harmonies with him, And the dude looks like fucking he's been run through a cheese grater, So he's not
the years of nothing kind, old Blackie.
But that being said, they put on a great show, and like I don't really have a huge opinion about that. I see bands using tracks all the time, like in every type of genre of music and what I do for work. So it's like, it kind of goes back to the conversation we were just having about the creative process. It's like, it can make things a lot easier. Of course, purists are always going to have their opinion about it, but we're in the fucking future already. Why the fuck not, man? Like,
right. And I think 50 years into a career, I think at this point you kind of know you're going to see more of a Kiss performance. You're going to see it for the whole show that it is. You're not expecting Paul to sound like he did in 1977. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, that's kind of crazy and a little bit naive to think that anybody could pull that off.
I mean, Rob Halford can.
Rob Halford can, yes. Rob Halford seems to deny. But you're not going to hear me say a bad word, because Rob Halford was my gateway and my introduction to heavy metal. So I have a very, very huge spot in my heart for Judas Priest. Yeah.
Same, man. And fuck, and their new album's great.
Amazing,
actually, really amazing. Good.
Yeah. Rob Halford seems to have found the fountain of youth, vocally even too.
Yeah, I was, like, they released the first couple singles off the new album, and I was like, oh, that's pretty good, but when you listen to the actual full album, it's like, it's up there with fucking almost with Painkiller or Ram It Down or some shit. I
agree.
It's fucking good.
Now, let me ask you, since you do play extreme metal music, I always see a lot of albums getting reviewed, on this site or that site, and I always take all that stuff with a little bit of a grain of salt. But one big thing that I see that infuriates me in the circles of extreme metal is, you'll hear a lot about, a band's sound getting compromised. Either they're not as heavy as they were before. But then when they're too heavy and it's just a wall of white noise and sound, then people say it's not melodic enough. How do you balance that out? Because like that seems to be like a double-edged sword that I see in extreme metal. But, can music get to be so heavy that it ceases to be enjoyable, or is it just go as fucking heavy as you possibly can?
It's kind of like a matter of taste. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that are straight up anti-melody, and they want to hear the fucking heaviest, most abrasive shit possible. And if it's like, if there's a fucking major scale or any kind of scale or a blues scale in there, God forbid, it's not for them. But then, you've got bands that are like some of the biggest band, like look at fucking like Black Dahlia Murder, for instance.
Yeah.
Tons of melody, tons of melodic content, and also still very brutal, Shit, the new Necrot album is our most melodic album, but also our most brutal album, I think.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think there is, for me, there's more of a line of whether it becomes heavy or not with the type of technicality that's used, you know?
Yeah.
I think that you can lose heaviness with too much technicality. Uh, and then maybe I'm kind of more of a meat potatoes riff kind of guy,
Yeah.
you know, and like we get it in the reviews a lot. Oh, well, they're not, reinventing the wheel here. It's like, well, when are some of these fucking interviewers gonna reinvent the wheel with their fucking questions? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
what the
Yeah.
fuck, dude?
And then
Like,
when you are,
what do you expect? It's like, well, I'm gonna fucking introduce a fucking organ player
right,
playing
right, right.
Sun Ra jazz over the new
And then
NECROT
the minute
shit.
you do that, you'll get a lot of flack. It's like, do you want the same Cannibal Corpse album all the time and have them stay true to their roots? If they introduced even the littlest tweak, that everyone's going to say this is not Cannibal Corpse, or this is not,
Yeah,
whatever heavy band you're.
it's a
I think
weird.
I think when you buy a Cannibal Corpse album what you're getting.
Yeah, it's a weird place to be in a way, because it's like, and I kind of had this conversation with Scott from Cyanide, Scott Carroll, recently. I
Mm-hmm.
was in Chicago on tour and we were talking, and we were like, he, for instance, loves like 70s glam punk and rock and roll,
Yeah.
but he's only been in Cyanide like since he was like 15, and played
Right.
with the same three guys forever. And we were talking, and I was like, man, well, we were joking around. I was like, I can't wait to release my solo acoustic album, but like everybody's gonna think I'm a pussy because it's not death metal. I was like, oh yeah, now that you play death metal, you're fucked. You can't do anything.
Yeah.
And
You get
then
your
it was
metal
like,
card pulled.
but whatever. I don't really subscribe to that, but I kind of felt that it kind of spoke to a larger idea of what that is for certain people, you know what I mean? And in a way, it's like, look at a band like AC/DC too. Like they stayed pretty true to their whole sound, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like,
Yep.
and even all the way up until like the last album they've done, they've always sounded like AC/DC. Now Metallica, no,
No,
you know.
no, definitely not. No, no, they got a
Uh,
little bit experimental, and they lost some of their fans on a few albums, I think.
but I'm trying to think of some bands that did branch out and it actually was really cool. Uh I can't think of any right now, but I know there are some, and I think it can go both ways. I don't think that music should be put into a cage of idealism of whether it's pure or not. I mean, if you're an artist, you should be able to expand however you feel. But that being said, I also love like my true band, like AC/DC is another one of my favorite bands, and I'm glad
Yeah,
they stayed true to their sound. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Obituary, I'm glad that they stayed true to their sound.
yeah,
Uh, so maybe it just depends on the band, I
yeah,
guess. I don't know, the group of
yeah,
people, or maybe even the time of when it was released. Maybe whatever the trend that people are stoked on, a band tries something different, and it's like that's not what people were in the metal scene are like grooving with, or maybe it comes at the wrong time or something.
yeah.
But I don't know.
I do
I don't
think the
know.
music world has gotten a little more accepting though, because I mean I'm 51 years old, so I remember a time back when I was a teenager when, like, if you were calling yourself a metalhead, you didn't want to get called the dreaded poser. You better not get caught listening to anything but metal. You know what I mean? You better do that in
It's
the
way
privacy of your
less.
own
Yeah.
bedroom behind closed doors, and nobody ever better find out that you were like grooving along to something that was like pop music or something like that, because your reputation would be, and that's a big deal to you when you're young.
Like, what, you like Yellow?
Yeah,
Steely
what?
Dan?
What?
What the
Yeah,
fuck?
you'd be
Yeah.
ostracized. I mean, you'd be you'd be
Yeah.
drummed out of the metal circle. I mean, talk about getting your card pulled. I mean, that was huge.
Here's the thing. I have always kind of considered myself first and foremost a musician
Yeah,
before I'm a metalhead or a punk rocker or whatever, you know what I mean? And if I look at it in that way, I'm allowed to listen to whatever the fuck I want and draw from
sure.
whatever influence I want.
Yeah,
And I encourage everybody who plays to try to look at it that way. Because shit, look at all the influence that has come into metal from non-metal influences, for like classical music, for instance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Classical music is a huge influence on heavy metal through people like Richie Blackmore or Yngwie Malmsteen or gosh, you name it. You know,
Yeah.
you can go back and trace a million fucking people who are influenced by classical and the metal. You know,
Yeah.
totally opposite of heavy metal, but technical, fast, lots of crazy scales. You know,
Yep.
so
Very similar. Very similar. You wouldn't think it, but yeah, very similar. Especially, hearing that from somebody, who is a musician. And I've done so many episodes with so many guys in thrash and death metal bands, and very rarely do they ever cite their influence in the same genre that they play. As you said, it's always people from the 70s. It's outside of the extreme metal genre. It very rarely do they say they've drawn any influence from anything that was really, really, akin to what they're playing.
yeah, I mean, there are some great players out right now that I love. That I love what Blood Incantation is doing.
Yeah.
Fucking Brandon Ellis from Black Dahlia is phenomenal guitar player to watch.
Yeah. Very happy to see that the guys in Power Trip are going to continue on.
Yeah, Power Trip was a good one.
Rest in peace, remember, rest in peace, Riley Gale. But it looks like they are going to
Absolutely.
move on. They are going to move on with Seth Gilmore, who was singing in the project with Blake from the band there. They were doing a Fugitive, which was amazing. Yeah, amazing. But glad to see the Power Trip guys are carrying on, though, because it seemed like they were just starting to hit their stride.
There is a huge, relevant, just awesome metal scene happening right now.
Yeah.
So many bands, and it's as exciting of a time to be in the underground extreme music arena. So
yeah, I agree.
like right now, so it's cool as shit.
Now, we put a lot of shine on NECROT, but I certainly want to put a little bit of shine on some of your other bands. So talk a little bit about the other projects. You mentioned one of them earlier in the interview.
Yeah, so I'm also playing in a band with my partner, Marcel Murray, called Vorlust, and we are what we call beast metal band.
Okay.
And that's with Dustin Ponko from a band called Pygus, which is also a West Coast death metal band, and Cody Stein. We have a record out on Transylvania Recordings called Lick the Flesh that I recorded and helped produce.
Okay.
It was a band that she helped. She came up with the entire concept and wrote all the music. I was kind of helping record stuff and ended up playing in the band. It's kind of like sort of really nasty, bestial, blackened thrash music type stuff.
Okay.
Think like Frost, Venom, some Slayer, early Sepultura, kind of just nasty thrash type stuff, really, with like a lot of solos.
Now, on your page, I also have, and correct me, of course, I'm finding these on Metal Encyclopedia. So Watch Them Die. Is that still currently going?
That is not currently going. That was a band going in the early 2000s, and I played on their second record, Bastard Son.
Okay.
We were on Century Media for a while. We did a lot of cool tours with like Goat Horror, High on Fire, Black Dahlia, Cattle Decapitation, Silent Green. It was a really cool band, super thrash. It was with the guys from a band called Grimple, and the singer also used to roll with Guar and Buzz Up in a bunch.
How about Saviors?
Saviors. I played on 3 or 4 Saviors albums. Also another Bay Area band that was kind of I stepped in after the first album and joined the band and started touring, and then ended up playing on 3 albums with them. That was a great time. The kind of more like sort of stoner rock, but more leaning towards like new wave of British heavy metal and 70s progressive rock, mixed with like Van Halen and ZZ Top kind of shit.
Now, here's what I really
Motorhead.
Here's the one I really want to ask you about, though. Kids in Satan's Service, which I want to let my audience know. A lot of people my age, when we were kids, did believe that actually was. We were rumored to be that's what Kiss, and I'm imagining that's probably a nod to that rumor back then. A lot of people were led to believe that is what the band Kiss, that was what it was an acronym for.
Right.
Which is so silly. Which is so silly to look back on now, like knowing Kiss the way we know them now. They're anything but satanic.
Okay, so Kids in Secret Service was a remote pandemic project I did with some of the guys from Wake, from Arkansas, spelled RWAKE.
Okay, so you're saying it was Kids in Secret Service?
In Satan's Service.
Okay, that's what I had written down here. I thought for a minute there, but the connection got.
Oh, maybe I said it wrong. I heard, sorry.
Yes, no. Believe me, Kids in Satan's Service is what I wanted it to be.
Yeah. Kids in Secret Service. Yeah, we're a training program for the CIA. No, we sing about Quantico. No, so a couple of the guys from Wake, Reed and B and Jeff. And CT from Wake, the folks from a band called Dar Sombra. It was the singer from Watchtower, and our old friend John Hopkins, who passed away shortly after that. We just did All Hell's Breaking Loose from the Lick It Up album. We did like a cover of it together.
Okay,
and it's on YouTube. You can watch it on YouTube.
Okay. So a big nod to Kiss then. So so obviously, I brought up the backing tracks earlier. Now I'm bringing up the punching holes in the Kiss name theory. I don't want to act like I'm beating up Kiss because I really do love them. Are you a huge fan? Like, was this like this sounds very much like a tribute to Kiss in some ways?
Yeah, I mean, they kind of asked me to see if I wanted to do this thing, and they're super old friends of mine, so I was like, yeah. I'm fucking into it, I'm not doing shit right now, everybody's locked down. So I was pleased to join. I love Kiss. It wasn't a band that I used to dress up like Ace Frehley when I was like 8 years old or whatever, you know what I mean? I love the band, but I'm not like maybe as diehard of a Kiss fan as a real Kiss Army freak would be, but
right, like the people, like the people that are willing to turn the other cheek on their 6-year or their 6-year long a farewell tour, and we'll go see them everywhere. You're not that kind of guy.
No, but I've probably seen him about 8 times, maybe.
They're everybody's guilty pleasure, I mean,
they're fucking awesome, man. If you don't like Kiss, like, I don't know, man. There's something wrong with you.
Very wrong with you. Yeah, you probably should be deported from this country. I mean, there's nothing more American. I think it should be a baseball, apple pie, and Kiss.
Right? I mean, shit, Kiss is fucking
American
as pie.
Yeah, or claim to be. Okay, so what's the
backing tracks or not, they still put on a fucking killer show.
Right. A lot of it is the fire and the lasers and the all the good stuff. Good stuff that we expect at a Kiss concert. Yeah, that's the stuff that we we don't care what the hell the voices sound like at this point. I mean,
yeah.
As long as there's as long as there's a bloody a dripping bloody tongue and plenty of Paul Stanley chest hair. I mean, what do we care, right?
All right. Oh,
and you're always going to get that in spades.
Pro tip: go to YouTube and check out Paul Stanley stage banter reels. That shit's hilarious.
I will be doing that as soon as we get off. Paul Stanley stage banter reels. That sounds like a winning video right there.
Yeah,
how that won't have millions of hits, I won't understand, because it already sounds like it should.
It probably does.
So what is Necrot's big plan going forward now? The album just came out like a month and some change, month and a half ago. So I'm imagining some tour plans are starting or have started.
We are starting our tour on Wednesday, the June 5th, here in the Bay Area in Berkeley, and the Lifeless Birth US tour runs until July 13th. And we're touring with Bat from Richmond, Virginia, which is some of the guys from Municipal Waste, and a band from New Mexico called Street Tombs. And then later on, Phobophilic takes Bat's place on the East Coast. And then we get home for about a week, and then we head straight out to Europe. And then we're doing a bunch of festivals in Europe. We're out in Europe for about a month. We're playing like Brutal Assault, Party Son, Void Fest, Stonehenge Fest, a bunch of different festivals over there, and then that's the bulk of our year right now.
Europeans
For
really
stuff.
have it figured out, though, man. Do you notice a big difference? Because it seems like these festivals go off without a hitch over there, and it pales in comparison to what we have here in the States. When you go on tour, man, you know, do you see a glaring difference? I mean, obviously you're up on a stage, you're seeing a screaming audience out there, but just the vibe, the feel, is it a different kind of hangover in Europe than it is here?
Yeah, and in some
Yeah,
ways, yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like when you tour in Europe, they're more geared towards being more hospitable to the bands. That's for sure.
yeah.
You know,
Asshole Americans.
and there's way more festivals. So yeah, I mean, they probably have it a little more together. Although the American Metal Fest is certainly starting to catch up. You know, I mean, there's some great festivals here happening right now.
Yeah,
But yeah, you know, it's like you will tour in Europe and they'll be like, "Oh, we have an apartment upstairs you can stay. We have made this massive meal for you before you
that's nice.
play.
That's
Here's
nice.
like all the snacks and beer you could have, you know, and whatever you need. Wait, you know,
I feel
like
like Sonny. I feel like without knowing my dialects really well, that you just slipped into a French accent there, man. So you're saying, are you just stereotyping the French as being hospitable, or everybody over there?
no, everybody really.
Okay.
I could have used well, if I was using like a German accent, it would be more like you did not play the song of the demo. And when you
Yeah,
came last time, your performance was much tighter. What
yeah, that's
happened?
scary. Yeah. Yeah, you don't want the Germans mad at you,
No,
man. We all saw
no,
how that worked back in the 30s.
oh my god,
Not
they're
really
just
good.
you know the Germans they're just very they're very straight up and
Yeah,
honest with you
yeah,
know
yeah,
which is kind of I kind of appreciate really,
yeah.
but you know all those places like you know like you tour in the States, you might drive 8 or 9 hours to get there. They you know, that there's no fucking water, there's when you get
Right,
there, you know, there's like
right.
half the time they're like, "Oh, here's $10 each," you know?
Yeah,
There's a food like, you know,
some
1
rotten
hour
deli tray.
away or whatever, you know,
Yeah, or something. Yeah.
it's just not this it's not set up the same, you know?
Now let
I
me ask
mean,
you about touring
yeah.
though. Are you a fan of touring, or do you hate leaving your creature comforts? Are you a fan of hitting the road?
Yeah. Yeah, yes and
Yeah.
no. Um I've been touring pretty heavy since I was about 19, so I think it's an acquired taste of living. It's not for everybody. Uh, I have my limits like anybody, but I enjoy it, Um, as I get older, it would be nice to not have to be on the road all the time. I like being home more for sure, but I still enjoy it. I still love going to cities. I have a ton of friends all over the world from touring for so long that I still love seeing. I love meeting all the fans and you know, I love the energy from the show that you get from interacting with the fans on, the interplay between the audience and the band is like when
Yeah.
that's really there, it's something special, it's addicting, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love it. I still love it. Yeah.
Now I know the album just came out April 12th, but obviously I don't have to tell you, working in this industry, the music business changed so much. The internet, social media, everything has just changed the game so much. Album sales, yeah, I mean, the whole game has changed. It seems like so. I know this album just came out a month and some change ago, but how soon? Because it just seems like everybody's putting out singles, EPs, really doing everything they can to keep their name out there and keep it relevant with so much. There's certainly no shortage of music out there, and you obviously have so many hours in the day. Like I said, people aren't buying albums the way they used to. Keeping your name out there. How soon do you think about going back in and already starting on like new material? Is it one of those things where you feel like pressure, like, okay, how long do we have before we got to follow this up, before people forget, before we got to get something new out there?
Um, That's a great question. I think it probably well, for us, it definitely our lives, especially revolves around the pandemic, threw a lot of curveballs
Yeah.
our way with various health and family issues. A member moved down to Mexico full time. Uh, so we kind of ended up putting a lot of stuff on hold until now. So, I think we'll just have to see. I think that it depends on the band. Like, I mean, some bands, they might have a new record every year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think I think it's cool if you tour on a record for a few years, and that's totally acceptable before you come out with a new one. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Yeah.
Um, I don't feel like there's any real pressure. Um, I think it's possible to lose for a band and lose momentum if they're not like already a super popular band,
Right.
So there is definitely a threshold of like whether you are in the game or you're out of the game, that it gets harder to get back in the game again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you're like a legendary band, like people are gonna. It doesn't matter when it comes out. People will be excited anyways.
Right.
So I think it just sort of depends. But yeah, I mean, I like we've usually typically gone like every 2 or 3 years and done
Yeah.
a ton of shit on each album and just like really got our worth out of it,
Yeah.
which I
Lifeless
think is
Birth.
yeah,
Lifeless Birth is the album. It will melt your fucking face off. So if you're sitting around some night and you're saying, "Hey, how can I melt my face?" Put this album on.
that's right. It's your face is like a butter knife to the stove and your brain is some hash.
I love it. I love it, man. Yeah.
Melt that shit, inhale
Yeah.
it.
Melt that, melt that shit. Inhale it. Yeah. Hey, listen, Sonny, I'm so glad you made the time to do this. And you know what I like the most, man? You are a can-do guy. Most of the time, man, especially in the boxing world, during my other podcast, but just in general, sometimes it's really tough sometimes. And I understand everyone's got lives. I work in healthcare. I'm a nurse by day. I got grown kids, but I got grandkids. So it can be tough, man. But I love the fact that you're just like, hey, how about now? Fuck it.
Yeah, I know we've been trying to make it happen for a while, so I was like, I did a whole interview for a documentary earlier today, so I'm already in the mode, and
Right.
I
Off
I
mode.
I, I finished one of my last shifts for work before tour, and I'm just like, okay, I got some time. Let's just
I
fucking let's
appreciate
knock
it.
it out. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's been
Yeah.
great to talk to you though, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
I enjoyed your questions, and
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I do hope you'll stay in touch. I'd love to have you on again sometime. Definitely.
sounds good. Sounds
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Keep in touch and safe travels out there. Best of luck on the tour. I hope it swings through upstate New York or close by.
Hey, check out the
I will.
lineup of dates, and if there's something close by that you want to check out, hit me up.
I will do that. I will do that. It's been a pleasure, Sonny. I really appreciate it, man. Thanks for doing this.
All right, cheers.
Good talking to you. Thank you.
Later.
There he goes, folks. That is Sonny Reinhardt, guitarist extraordinaire. And you will know that it is extraordinaire if you've listened to a Necrot album. And you should be, because as you just heard, it will melt your face off. Both I said that and Sonny, who's in the band and should know, also concurred. The album is Lifeless Birth. It just dropped April 12th. Necrot is one of the bands at the forefront of death metal, extreme metal right now. A lot of buzz around these guys, and for good reason, man. They fucking kick ass. And love the fact that I just literally threw this together kind of last minute, was chopping it up on the phone a little bit, and Sonny's like, hey, I got some time. How about right now? Love that. Love the fact that some guy will just be like, you know what? I don't got to fucking plan every little infinite detail. Send me a link. Let's fucking do it. I applaud that, man. That is great, man. Such a pleasure talking to Sonny, man. Go check out the Necrot album. As I said, Lifeless Birth. It just dropped April 12th, so it is fresh new music from the band. and you will not be disappointed. Go check that album out. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Pod Scum and my triumphant return. No more just boxing, although off the couch boxing, still very much in full force, but back to pulling double duty. The old Rexxx Ruger with 3 X's is back again. As you can see, the hair is out. Never looked more like David Lee Roth in my life. If only Dave could see me right now, I think even he would say, son, where have you been? But we're not at that point yet, so I digress. But hope you guys enjoyed that episode. Remember, folks, until we meet again, make sure that you guys take it easy and keep it sleazy.